Welcome everyone to another video on the Parsha. This week's Parsha, Parshas Vayigash. I would like to speak about Yehuda's pleading, what he was implying by his pleading. Was he hinting anything to Yosef? I would also like to speak about Yaakov going down to Egypt and the Hashem coming to him in a vision after he brought sacrifices, and what it means, Vayizbach zvachim le'elokei aviv Yitzchak, he brought sacrifices to the God of his father Yitzchak. It should have said to the God of his fathers. We'll bring that in the Ramban a little bit, and although I don't understand the Ramban totally, I'll try explain what I do understand in the Ramban. But first I would like to start with the overall picture of what's going on over here. But before that, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe and comment and help us grow this channel. Okay, so let's get started. So last week's Parsha ended off where basically Yosef accused Binyamin of taking his goblet, his silver goblet, and therefore they all came back to Egypt and fell before Yosef and admitted, what can we do? Hashem found the sin of your servants, because they didn't really believe that Binyamin stole the goblet. But anyhow, so now this week's and the Parsha ended off by them saying, we're all going to be slaves, also us, also Binyamin, the one that the goblet was found in his hands. And Yosef said, no, the one that the goblet was found in his hands will be for me as a slave, and the rest should go back to their father. In other words, Yosef was acting to them like a man that fears God and someone who didn't want to cause extra pain, and therefore I'm only going to someone who stole the king's goblet, which was so great, or second to the king. He's going to be my slave. I'm not going to do anything worse than anything worse than that. I'm just going to make him my slave, and the rest, you all didn't have anything to do with it. I trust you. I believe you're good people, and therefore you'll go back in peace to your father. So Yehuda wasn't willing to accept this, and this week's Parsha starts with that. Yehuda stepping forward and saying, Be Adoni, please my master, let me speak a word in your ears, and don't get angry at your servant, because I compare you to Paro. The Ramban explains, in other words, I compare you to Paro, meaning I fear you. You're as great as Paro, and I fear you like Paro, so therefore I'm not speaking like this out of lack of respect. It's just out of necessity, and I don't have any other, I don't know what else to do. So now, understanding the simple shot of the Ramban is that Yehuda decided that pleading to Yosef would be the best option. In other words, he didn't try arguing with Yosef. Yosef's a king. What is he supposed to do? And perhaps we could even say, like Chazal, that he suspected that Yosef was doing this on purpose. So Yehuda decided that admitting guilt would be the best option, and then pleading for mercy because of what will happen to their father if Binyamin doesn't go back. And therefore he starts saying, he brings this whole introduction. Now before we'll start the introduction, we'll explain that when Yehuda says davar, what is davar? The Ramban says hatmura, meaning all this that he speaks right now and says right now, it's just something to awaken Yosef's mercy on Binyamin and on their father. And then afterwards he says the thing that he wants to speak, and this is what he said at the end: please let me become a slave instead of Binyamin, and let Binyamin go back to his father. So the Torah says, Yedaberna avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni be'avdecha ki kamocha kefarei Adoni shalas avadav leimar. You asked us, meaning he's saying, you asked us, saying, do you have a father or a brother? And we said we have we have a father and a brother that a brother that's considered the old age son, and his father. We have a brother that he's the only left of his mother to our father, and his father loves him. His brother has died, is gone, and so on. So, and you told us, even so, bring him down, and you won't see our face. We came back to our father, and our father wasn't willing to let Binyamin go, even though we said that you're not going to accept us unless we bring him. Only after there was no food, and we had to go back to Egypt anyhow, did Yaakov agree to send Binyamin. Meaning, until now, he's saying how much we didn't want to send Binyamin. How is the father didn't want to send Binyamin. And how Binyamin, when they told him how Yaakov, when they told him all of this, he still wasn't willing to send him until he had no choice. So basically, you caused this to happen because you caused us forcefully to send him, and then at the end he's going to be a slave to you. He's going to be a slave to you, and therefore Yehuda please let him. Basically says that Nar is going to die. Binyamin is not. They considered him a lad and someone that wouldn't manage to work in slavery and all of that, and they said that they would cause Yaakov to go down in grieving to his grave, meaning that would cause the rest of his life to be grieving and in pain. So for those reasons, please let me be a slave to Yosef, to you, instead of Binyamin. That was basically Yehuda's what Yehuda said. So the Malbim says something similar to this, that basically he could have tried bringing arguments, but then who are you bringing arguments to? A king. He could decide whatever he wants over here, and he could say he doesn't trust your proofs and all of that. Only if they're real judges would you be able to bring arguments. Therefore, he decided to accept guilt and then plead for mercy. So that's another interesting thing the Ramban says. It says in the Torah, "V'lo yochal Yosef leitapek." After Yehuda finished speaking, Yosef couldn't continue being strong. The Ramban explains leitapek to fight back in strength. L'chol hanitzavim alav, to all the ones that were standing before him. Vayomar otziu kol ish me'alai, and he said, remove every person from me. So, and no one stood before him when he decided to reveal himself to his brothers. So some opinions say that he wasn't able to, the Rashi says he wasn't able to accept the fact that his brothers were in pain and all these Egyptians were standing around watching. Another explanation is he wasn't able to wait enough time because he was about to burst and cry, that he screamed immediately, remove everyone from me, so this would only happen in front of his brothers. The Ramban explains that he wasn't able, that all these people that were close up to Paro and from Paro's family and high up in the kingdom and royal people in Egypt were in the courtyard, Yosef's courtyard, and there they heard this, and they all heard Yosef's pleading and saw what was happening over here, and they themselves came up before Yosef and started pleading because they couldn't stand this pain that was this bad thing that was happening, that Yaakov would be in such pain, and all of this, the whole story, how it seemed like such a sad story and everything, that they couldn't stand it anymore. They're also pleading for Yosef to have mercy on Binyamin. So Yosef couldn't argue with all of them anymore and try standing against all of them anymore. He called, remove everyone from me, and then he finally revealed himself to his brothers. So that's another thing. Now later on, Yosef and Paro sent the brothers back to tell their father that Yosef was alive, which we'll see. Yaakov didn't accept immediately. Vayipeg libai, his heart was pag. Now Rashi says it means that he just didn't believe them. His mind went away from believing him. It didn't believe him. The Ramban explains that Vayipeg is like it stopped. Like pag doesn't mean it became less. It stopped completely, meaning like a smell stopped. So over here it would mean his heart stopped. He he fainted. Basically fainted. He had a heart attack or something, and they brought around the wagons and they told him everything that Yosef told him and all of that, until finally he got used to it and calmed down and realized it was reality, and he woke up again. It was such a shock to him and such good news that not that he didn't believe, he fainted. And yeah, that's the Ramban's explanation. So then he said, Yaakov said, Rav Ad Yosef ben Ichai, I'll go and see him, like it's a lot I have that Yosef, my son, is still alive. I'll go and see him before I die. So the simple explanation is Yaakov had in mind to go to Egypt and stay there the rest of his life. Now, the Malbim has a different take on this and says that Yaakov didn't have in mind, he just had in mind to see and then return to Eretz Yisrael, to Eretz Canaan, and he only decided to go to Egypt and settle there when he went to Beersheba and brought sacrifices, and Hashem told him to go down there. So this was and then he decided then he realized he's going to stay down there. So this was the beginning of Galus, that was for sure. And it seems like, according to the Ramban, Yaakov understood this from the beginning, according to the Malbim, after Hashem told him. But whatever the case is, he understood now this was the beginning of Galus, and it caused him he feared. So according to the Ramban, he brought sacrifices, Veizbach Zevachim, he brought sacrifices, not olos, not burnt offerings, but shlamim, which has a piece for everyone. So he brought these sacrifices, Veizbach Zevachim, Pachad Aviv, Yitzchak, the God of his father Yitzchak, which was Gvura. And he brought it because he was scared. Now, it has to mention that because Yaakov had a strength already, meaning beforehand it would have said to Yaakov, he brought sacrifices to the God of his fathers. But now, because Yaakov had strength, but he was bringing it for a certain purpose. He was bringing Pachad Aviv Yitzchak, meaning he wanted to know what, maybe it was for a specific reason. Now, I'm not trying to understand the Ramban so clearly, but I'm trying to, what I think we could understand from this is that when someone brings korbanos, he wants to get close to Hashem. So there is one way of seeing this is, you daven for something, but in a whole, because Hashem sees the picture in a whole. So you daven. I hope this is you try davening more broadly. But the way we see over here is that you are supposed to be more specific. He had a specific thing in mind when he brought these korbanos. He had in mind to understand what was going to be. He feared the galus, and he wanted Hashem to tell him what was going to be and calm him down about that. And that's what probably it means Pachad Aviv Yitzchak over here. Now, I don't understand the Ramban completely. The Ramban has a very deep explanation over here, but I just wanted to point that out. I don't have too much more to say. That's about it. So I hope some of this at least is understandable. And if you argue with me, I'd please love to hear comments. Of course, I'd like to hear comments that have a little bit of content in it, not just, it's not like arguing baseless arguments, like you have proof or a point, a valid point. But anyhow, so please, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe and comment. Thank you very much for watching.